Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Horizon, watching the stars drift past through the main viewport. The deep space exploration vessel had been traveling for 3 months now, searching for signs of life in the outer rim of the galaxy. So far, they had found nothing but empty space and dead rocks floating in the void. Lisa Park sat at her communication station, her fingers dancing across the control panel as she monitored radio frequencies. The young officer had been doing this same routine for weeks, hoping to catch something other than cosmic background noise. She was about to switch to the next frequency when a weak signal made her headset crackle. "Captain," Lisa called out, her voice filled with excitement. "I'm getting something strange here. It's not natural background radiation." Morrison walked over to her station, his boots making soft sounds on the metal deck. He had been captain of the Horizon for 5 years, but this was the first time they had encountered anything unusual during their deep space missions. "What kind of signal is it?" "It's definitely artificial, sir. The pattern is too regular to be natural. It's repeating every few seconds, but it's very weak. I think it might be a distress call." Lisa adjusted her controls, trying to clean up the signal. "I'm going to try to boost the gain and see if I can make it clearer." Chief Engineer Ben Cooper looked up from his station at the back of the bridge. He was a tall man with graying hair who had been working on starships for 20 years. "I can reroute power from the secondary systems to the communications array if you need more signal strength." "Do it," Morrison ordered. He felt his heart beating faster in his chest. After years of finding nothing but empty space, they might finally have discovered something important. Ben's fingers moved quickly across his console, redirecting power from non-essential systems to the communications equipment. The lights on. The bridge dimmed slightly as more power flowed to the radio receivers. "You should have full power now, Lisa." The signal became clearer, and everyone on the bridge could hear it through the speakers. It was a series of high-pitched tones and low clicks that definitely did not sound human. The pattern repeated every 10 seconds, with slight variations each time. "It's definitely not coming from Earth or any of our colonies," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is something else entirely." Dr. Amy Rodriguez entered the bridge from the science labs below. She was the ship's xenobiologist, a specialist in the study of possible alien life forms. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her brown eyes showed the excitement of someone who had waited her whole career for this moment. "I heard the alert on the ship's communication system," she said, walking quickly to Lisa's station. "Is it really what I think it is?" "We think so," Morrison replied. "Ben, can you work with Lisa to decode this signal? We need to know what it's saying." Ben nodded and moved to a secondary console next to Lisa's station. He began running the signal through various translation programs and pattern recognition software. The computer systems worked for several minutes, trying to find meaning in the alien sounds. "I'm getting something here," Ben said finally. "The computer is detecting mathematical patterns in the signal. It's using prime numbers and basic geometric shapes. This is definitely an attempt at communication." Security Chief Carlos Martinez had been listening quietly from his position near the weapons console. He was a former military officer who always thought about potential threats. "Captain, should we be concerned about responding to this signal? We don't know who sent it or why." Morrison considered the question carefully. First contact with an alien species was something humanity had dreamed about for centuries, but it also carried unknown risks. "We'll proceed with caution, but we need to help whoever sent this signal. If someone is in distress, we have a moral obligation to assist them." The translation program continued working on the signal, and slowly, words began to appear on the screen. The message was simple but urgent. "Help us. Ship damaged. Dying. Please respond." "My God," Amy whispered. "They're asking for help." "This is really happening? Lisa quickly prepared a response signal, using the same mathematical patterns the aliens had used. She sent back a simple message. We hear you. We are coming to help. Send your location. The response came back within minutes. A set of coordinates appeared on the screen, showing a location about 6 hours away at maximum speed. The alien ship was drifting in space near a small asteroid field. Ben, can we reach those coordinates safely? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. I'll need to push the engines harder than usual, but we can make it. The fuel consumption will be higher, but we have enough reserves. Do it. Set course for those coordinates immediately. As the horizon changed direction and accelerated toward the alien ship, Morrison felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Humanity was about to make first contact with an alien species, and he was responsible for how it went. The next 6 hours passed slowly. The crew worked to prepare for the encounter, checking equipment and reviewing first contact protocols. Amy prepared her translation equipment and biological scanning devices. Carlos ensured that the ship's defenses were ready, just in case. Lisa maintained contact with the alien ship, sending reassuring messages that help was on the way. When they finally reached the coordinates, they found a strange ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It was long and thin, with a curved hull that seemed to bend light around it. Parts of the ship were clearly damaged, with holes in the hull and hull systems that were not working. I'm detecting life signs aboard that ship, Amy reported. At least 12 individuals, but their biological readings are unlike anything in our databases. Morrison took a deep breath. Open a channel to the alien ship. Let's see who we're dealing with. The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the alien vessel. The beings they saw were insectoid in appearance, with multiple arms and large compound eyes. Their leader, who identified himself as Zektal, spoke in a voice that the translation system converted to accented English. Thank you for coming, Zektal said. We are Valathi, and we are running from something terrible. Our world has been destroyed, and we are the last of our kind. We did not know that your species existed. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. What destroyed your world? The Karnath Empire. They conquer everything they find. They are coming this way, and if they find your people, they will destroy them too. And with those words, everything changed for humanity forever. Captain Morrison made a decision that would change everything. Against standard protocol, he ordered the Horizon to dock with the damaged Valathi ship. The alien refugees needed medical attention, and their vessel would not survive much longer. In Space Doctor, Amy Rodriguez was the first to board the alien ship, carrying her medical equipment and translation devices. What she found inside shocked her. The Valathi were tall, graceful beings with 4 arms and large eyes that seemed to see everything. Their ship was beautiful, but fragile, built for peaceful exploration rather than survival. Your people, Zektal said as Amy examined his injuries. They come from a death world, yes? We have heard stories of such places, but we thought they were myths. Amy looked confused. Death world? What do you mean? Your planet. It tries to kill you every day. Extreme weather, dangerous animals, toxic atmosphere. Most worlds in the galaxy are peaceful. Life grows easily, and there is no struggle. But some worlds are different. They create beings like you. The Valathi elder, Rindar, approached them slowly. Her movements were careful and deliberate, like someone who had never faced danger in her life. We analyzed your biology when we first detected your ship. Your bone density is 3 times normal. Your muscle fibers are designed for extreme stress. Your nervous system processes information at speeds that should be impossible. Amy realized what they were saying. You're telling me that humans are unusually strong and fast compared to other species? Not just strong and fast, Zektal explained. Your people can function in situations that would kill most galactic species. Temperature, extremes, radiation exposure, low oxygen environments. You are built to survive anything. Meanwhile, on the Horizon's bridge, Chief Martinez was dealing with an unexpected problem. Long-range sensors had detected 3 ships approaching at high speed. The signatures matched nothing in Earth's databases, but the Velothi identified them immediately. Karnath scouts, Zektal's voice came through the communication system. They followed our trail. We must run immediately. Morrison looked at his crew. How long before they reach us? 20 minutes, sir, Lisa Park reported. From her station. They're moving fast. Can we outrun them? Morrison asked Ben Cooper. Not with the Velothi ship attached to us. Their vessel is too damaged to keep up, and we can't leave them behind. Security Chief Martinez stepped forward. Captain, we need to consider our options. We have never faced alien technology before. We don't know what their weapons can do. Morrison made another decision that surprised everyone. We fight. These Karnath destroyed an entire civilization. We won't let them do it again. The Velothi on the bridge looked at Morrison with amazement. You would fight the Karnath Empire? For us, most species surrender immediately when they see Karnath warships. Or not most species, Morrison replied grimly. Pilot Nina Foster had been listening to the conversation from her position at the helm. She was a former military pilot who had joined the exploration service for the adventure. Captain, I have an idea. If these aliens have never faced humans before, they won't know how we fight. What do you mean? Their ships are probably designed to fight other peaceful species. They won't expect aggressive tactics or unusual maneuvers. We might be able to surprise them. When the Karnath scouts arrived, they sent a standard message, demanding surrender. The lead scout captain, Vrektos, expected the usual response of immediate compliance. Instead, he received a message that confused him. This is Captain Morrison of the UN's Horizon. You are threatening innocent refugees. Leave this area immediately, or face the consequences. Vrektos had never heard such words before. In his experience, all species begged for mercy when confronted by Karnath power. Surrender now, or we will destroy your ship and take the Velothi for processing. Morrison's response was to open fire. The Horizon's weapons were designed for asteroid mining and debris clearing, but Nina Foster used them in ways their designers never intended. She fired short bursts while executing spinning maneuvers that made the human ship nearly impossible to target. The Karnath scouts fired back, but their weapons were designed for stationary targets. Nina's flying was unlike anything they had ever seen. She rolled the ship upside down, dove below the enemy formation, and attacked from angles that seemed impossible. How is this possible? Vrektos demanded of his weapons officer. No organic being can react that quickly. Lieutenant Tom Bradley led a boarding party when one of the Karnath ships was disabled. What happened next became legendary among the Velothi refugees. Bradley and his team moved through the enemy ship with speed and precision that seemed supernatural to the watching aliens. Marine Sergeant Kelly Wright demonstrated human combat effectiveness when cornered by 3 Karnath warriors. She fought with a combination of trained technique and pure instinct that left her opponents stunned. Where they expected civilized surrender, they found a predator who had been shaped by millions of years of evolution on a world that never stopped trying to kill its inhabitants. The Karnath scouts were not prepared for enemies who fought back with such ferocity. Their weapons were designed to terrorize peaceful species into submission, not to face beings who treated combat as a natural part of life. When the brief battle ended, 2 Karnath ships were destroyed and 1 was captured. The surviving scout ship fled to warn the Empire of what they had encountered. Dr. Rodriguez worked with Velathi scientists to analyze the captured technology. What she learned was disturbing. The Karnath Empire had conquered dozens of worlds using relatively simple tactics. They relied on fear and overwhelming numbers rather than superior technology. They have never faced serious resistance, she reported to Morrison. Every species they encounter gives up quickly. They don't know how to fight an enemy that refuses to surrender. The Velathi were amazed by what they had witnessed. Rindar approached Morrison with something like reverence. In her large eyes, "Your people are exactly what the legends described. Deathworlders who know no fear." "We know plenty of fear," Morrison replied. "The difference is that we don't let it stop us." Zektal began sending coded messages to other Velathi refugee groups scattered across the galaxy. His message was simple, but revolutionary. The Deathworlders are real, and they will fight for us. The news spread quickly through the underground networks of enslaved and conquered peoples. For the first time in decades, there was hope. Species that had given up all thoughts of freedom began to whisper about the humans who had appeared from. Nowhere to challenge the Empire. On Earth, the first reports of the encounter reached military headquarters. Admiral Frank Waters read the initial transmission with growing amazement. Humanity had made first contact, won their first interstellar battle, and discovered that they were apparently the toughest species in the galaxy. But the Karnath Empire was vast, and they now knew that humans existed. The small victory near. The asteroid field was just the beginning of something much larger. Morrison stood on his bridge, looking out at the stars and knowing that everything had changed. The quiet exploration mission had become something else entirely. Humanity was about to discover its true place in the galaxy, and the universe would never be the same. The Velathi refugees looked at their human rescuers with a mixture of gratitude and awe. They had been saved by beings from a death world, creatures who treated the impossible as merely difficult. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Karnath Empire began to prepare for war against an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. The escaped Karnath scout ship limped back to the nearest Imperial outpost, its hull scarred and its crew shaken. Commander Vrektos had never experienced defeat before, and he struggled to explain what had happened to his superior officers. "You were defeated by a single ship?" Admiral Throxan's voice carried disbelief and anger in equal measure. The massive reptilian commander had conquered 17 star systems without losing a single battle. How is this possible? They were not like other species, Admiral. They moved with impossible speed and showed no fear of death. Their ship performed maneuvers that should have killed any organic crew, yet they seemed unaffected. Throxan studied the battle recordings with growing concern. The human ship had indeed moved in ways that defied everything he knew about space combat. More disturbing was the way the human warriors had fought during the boarding action. They showed none of the expected submission that characterized all other galactic species. "Send this information to High Command immediately," Throxan ordered. "Overlord Veximer must know about this threat." On the Imperial homeworld, Overlord Veximer examined the reports with the cold calculation that had made him ruler of half the galaxy. The Karnath Empire had grown through systematic conquest, overwhelming less advanced species with superior numbers and ruthless tactics. They had never encountered serious resistance. "Deathworlders," he said finally, recognizing the term from ancient imperial records. "We knew such worlds existed, but we thought them uninhabitable. Apparently, life can evolve even in the most hostile environments." His chief advisor, General Crichter, shifted nervously. "Should we avoid their territory, Overlord? The risks might be too great." "No," Veximer's voice was firm. "We cannot allow any species to challenge Imperial authority. If word spreads that we were defeated by a single ship, our other subjects might begin to think they can resist us as well. Meanwhile, aboard the Horizon, Captain Morrison was learning more about the scope of the Carnath threat from the refugee ship Captain Yelena. The elderly Velathi had escaped the destruction of 3 different worlds and possessed extensive knowledge of Imperial tactics. They do not conquer through superior technology, she explained, her 4 arms gesturing as she spoke. Their ships are adequate, but not exceptional. Their weapons are effective, but not overwhelming. They win because they are willing to destroy entire populations to make examples. Intelligence Officer Steve Collins studied the star charts that Yelena had provided. The maps showed the full extent of Carnath territory, and the sight was sobering. Hundreds of star systems were marked with imperial symbols, representing billions of enslaved beings. They spread by terrorizing each new species they encounter, Collins reported to Morrison. A few orbital bombardments, some public executions, and most civilizations surrender without fighting. They've never had to develop tactics for dealing with determined resistance. Dr. Rodriguez had been analyzing biological samples from the captured Carnath warriors. Her findings were both encouraging and disturbing. They're physically impressive by galactic standards, but they're not actually stronger than humans. Their advantage comes from the fact that they're willing to use overwhelming force against populations that have never experienced real violence. What about their technology? Morrison asked. Again, it's adequate but not superior to ours. Their weapons are designed for terror rather than efficiency. Their ships are built for intimidation rather than performance. They've never needed to innovate because they've never faced an enemy that fought back effectively. Ben Cooper had been examining the captured Carnath vessel with growing confidence. Captain, their engineering is actually quite primitive compared to ours. They rely on brute force solutions rather than elegant design. I think we could take on much larger ships with the right tactics. The implications were staggering. Humanity had accidentally discovered that they were not only capable of standing up to the greatest military power in the galaxy, but that they might actually be superior to it in many ways. However, the Carnath Empire had one overwhelming advantage: numbers. Even if human ships were superior individually, the Empire could field thousands of vessels against Earth's small exploration fleet. We need to warn Earth immediately, Morrison decided. This isn't just about first contact anymore. We're looking at a potential invasion. Lisa Park had been monitoring communications from the Velathi refugee network. The news she brought was both hopeful and terrifying. Captain, I'm picking up messages from dozens of different species. Word is spreading about our victory, and some groups are talking about resistance for the first time in decades. That's good news, Morrison said. Yes, sir, but there's also bad news. At Carnath are mobilizing a major fleet to deal with us. Intelligence estimates suggest they're preparing at least 50 warships for the next encounter. The weight of responsibility settled on Morrison's shoulders. His decision to help the Velathi had inadvertently declared war on behalf of all humanity. Earth didn't even know that aliens existed, and now they were about to face the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Admiral Thraxon arrived at the rendezvous point with a fleet that represented significant imperial strength. 50 warships accompanied by support vessels and troop transports. In his experience, such overwhelming force had never failed to achieve immediate surrender. When we encounter these humans, he addressed his fleet commanders, show them the full power of the Empire. Destroy their ship quickly and publicly. We cannot allow other species to think that resistance is possible. The Admiral expected to find a single human vessel trying to escape with its alien refugees. Instead, his sensors detected something unprecedented. The human ship was still there, but it was no longer alone. 3 more human vessels had arrived, and they were not fleeing. Sir, his communications officer reported, the humans are broadcasting a message. Morrison's voice carried across the void with calm determination. This is Captain Morrison of the United Nations Space Command. You are ordered to withdraw from this sector immediately. We will not allow you to harm innocent refugees. Thraxon was stunned. Not only were the humans not fleeing, they were making demands. How many species are with them? Scans show only human life signs, Admiral. All 4 ships are crewed entirely by the Deathworlders. 4 ships against 50? And they're giving us ultimatums? Thraxan's voice mixed disbelief with growing anger. Open fire on their lead vessel. We'll see how brave they are when they watch their friends die. What followed was unlike any battle in Imperial history. The human ships moved with coordination and precision that seemed impossible. They used the asteroid field as cover, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the Karnath could respond effectively. Captain Greg Nelson of the Unzi Defiance led a frontal assault that confused the Imperial commanders. Instead of trying to avoid the larger fleet, he flew directly at them, firing continuously and using his ship's superior maneuverability to avoid return fire. Captain Helen Cruz of the UNS Retribution demonstrated human, tactical thinking by targeting the Empire's command ships first. While the Karnath expected enemies to flee from their strongest vessels, she attacked them directly. The battle lasted 3 hours and ended with the Imperial fleet in retreat. 12 Karnath ships were destroyed, and many others were damaged. The human fleet suffered minor damage, but no casualties. Admiral Thraxon found himself in the unprecedented position of having to report a major defeat to his superiors. The humans fight like nothing we have ever encountered. They show no fear, they use tactics we cannot predict, and their ships perform beyond all reasonable expectations. Overlord Veximer received the report with cold fury. For the first time in his reign, the Empire had been defeated in open battle. The implications were staggering. If other species learned that the Karnath could be beaten, the entire Imperial structure might collapse. Mobilize the entire Third Fleet, he ordered. We will crush these humans completely and make such an example of them that no species will ever dare to resist us again. But across the galaxy, the news of humanity's victory was already spreading. The underground networks were alive with hope and possibility. Species that had been enslaved for generations began to whisper about freedom. And on Earth, humanity was about to discover that they were not alone in the universe, and that they had inadvertently become the galaxy's greatest. Hope for liberation. The emergency transmission from Captain Morrison reached Earth at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Admiral Frank Waters was pulled from his bed by urgent communications staff, who had never seen anything like the message they were receiving. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," Commander Patricia Hill said as she handed him the decoded transmission. "It's from the Horizon, but the content is unprecedented." Waters read the message twice before the full implications sank in. First contact with alien species, battle with an interstellar empire, and a request for immediate military support. His first instinct was to assume it was some kind of elaborate hoax. "Get me a direct line to the Horizon," he ordered, "and wake up the Secretary of Defense. We need to verify this immediately." The conversation that followed changed everything for Earth's military establishment. Morrison's calm, professional report of the situation left no doubt about its authenticity. The sensor logs, alien communication records, and battle footage provided undeniable proof that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. How long do we have before this Karnath Empire reaches Earth? Waters asked. "Unknown, sir. But according to the Velathi refugees, they're mobilizing a major fleet to deal with us. We've made them look weak, and they can't allow that to stand." General Patricia Hill had been listening to the conversation with growing alarm. "Captain, what you're describing sounds like an invasion force. How many ships are we talking about?" Intelligence estimates suggest at least 200 warships, sir. Possibly more. The Carnith Empire has been conquering worlds for centuries. They have resources we can't match. The implications were staggering. Earth's Space Force consisted of fewer than 30 vessels, most of which were designed for exploration and research rather than combat. Against a fleet of 200 alien warships, humanity's chances seemed hopeless. But then Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system with information that changed everything. Admiral, I've been analyzing the alien technology and biology. We have significant advantages that we didn't realize. Explain. The Carnith and most other galactic species evolved on what they call garden worlds. Planets with stable climates, abundant resources, and minimal dangers. They've never faced the kind of evolutionary pressure that shaped humanity. Waters was beginning to understand. You're saying we're tougher than they are? Much tougher, sir. Human reflexes are 3 times faster than galactic average. Our bone density and muscle strength are far superior. Most importantly, we can function in environments that would kill other species. Colonel Danny Shaw, who had been coordinating Earth's defense preparations, added his analysis. Our weapons technology is also more advanced than we initially thought. What we consider standard military equipment is apparently quite sophisticated by galactic standards. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Earth's governments came to terms with the new reality. The United Nations Security Council held emergency sessions to address the crisis. Military leaders from every major nation gathered to plan humanity's defense. Major Lisa Kane was assigned to lead the first wave of Earth's response force. Her expertise in asymmetric warfare made her the ideal candidate to develop tactics for fighting a numerically superior enemy. We can't match their numbers, she explained to the assembled commanders, but we don't need to. If our intelligence is correct, we can use their own tactics against them. The plan that emerged was audacious in its scope, rather than wait for the Carnith to reach Earth. Humanity would take the fight to them. Strike forces would target Imperial supply lines and communication networks, or the main fleet prepared for a decisive battle. Meanwhile, the Velathi refugee network had become a galaxy-wide communication system. The news of humanity's victories was spreading to every enslaved world, and the response was unprecedented. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the Altarian slaves who had served the Empire for 50 years began to organize. Their leader, a former engineer named Tal Van, sent secret messages to other work camps. The Deathworlders are real, his message read. They fight the Empire and win. Perhaps it is time for us to fight as well. Similar stirrings were happening across Imperial territory. The Genterim scientists on Proxima Centauri began sabotaging Imperial research projects. The Kaldari traders in the Vega system started hiding supplies from Imperial tax collectors. For the first time in generations, the conquered peoples of the galaxy were beginning to hope. Overlord Veximer watched these developments with growing alarm. His intelligence networks reported uprising attempts on a dozen worlds. The carefully maintained structure of fear that held his empire together was beginning to crack. The human threat must be eliminated immediately, he told his war council. Every day we delay, more species begin to think they can resist us. General Kriktar had been studying the battle reports with professional interest. My lord, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans have proven they can fight effectively. A peace treaty might be more beneficial than a costly war. No, Veximer's voice was final. We cannot show weakness. The Empire exists because our subjects believe we are invincible. If we negotiate with these humans, every species in the galaxy will think they can make demands. The Third Fleet that assembled at the Imperial staging area was the largest military force in galactic history. 300 warships, supported by troop transports and supply vessels. The sight of so many ships gathered in one place was enough to make even veteran commanders nervous. Admiral Sectarn, chosen to lead the fleet, had conquered 12 star systems during his career. He understood the importance of his mission. "We will not simply defeat these humans," he told his officers. "We will obliterate them so completely that no other species will ever dare to challenge us again." Back on Earth, the response force was taking shape with remarkable speed. The initial panic had given way to grim determination as humanity realized what was at stake. Not just their own survival, but the freedom of every enslaved species in the galaxy. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system with an update that changed everything. "Earth Command, we've made contact with resistance networks on 17 different worlds. They're asking for our help to coordinate uprisings." Admiral Waters realized that the situation had evolved beyond a simple defense of Earth. "Captain, are you suggesting we're looking at a galaxy-wide rebellion?" "Yes, sir. The Carnith Empire is held together by fear. If we can demonstrate that they can be defeated, the entire structure might collapse." The scope of the conflict was becoming clear. This wasn't just about humanity's survival anymore. It was about liberation on a galactic scale. General Hill coordinated with resistance leaders across the galaxy, using the Velothi communication network to share intelligence and coordinate timing. The plan that emerged was breathtaking in its ambition. "We hit them everywhere at once," she explained to Earth's military leaders. "While our main fleet engages their third fleet, resistance groups across the galaxy launch coordinated uprisings. They won't be able to respond to everything simultaneously." The date was set. In 72 hours, humanity would lead the largest liberation effort in galactic history. The outcome would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of every intelligent species in the galaxy. As the final preparations were made, Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon, looking out at the growing human fleet. Ships that had been built for exploration were being converted into instruments of war. Crews that had signed up for peaceful missions were preparing for the fight of their lives. But there was no hesitation in their faces. Humanity had discovered its purpose in the galaxy, and they would not be found wanting. The Carnith Empire had ruled through fear for centuries. They were about to discover what happened when that fear was replaced by hope, and when the oppressed finally found someone willing to fight for them. The galaxy was about to change forever. Operation Starfall began at 0600 hours Galactic Standard Time, with the largest military deployment in human history. Admiral Frank Waters commanded the combined Earth fleet from the Bridge of the Uns in Liberation, a massive battleship that had been constructed in record time using alien technology provided by the Velothi. The human fleet consisted of 47 ships, each crewed by volunteers who understood they were fighting not just for Earth, but for the freedom of every enslaved species in the galaxy. The odds were 7-1 against them, but humanity had learned that numbers alone did not determine victory. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Commodore, led the advance force aboard the upgraded Horizon. His mission was to coordinate with resistance networks across Imperial territory and provide tactical support for the simultaneous uprisings. "All stations report ready," announced Commander Rick Davis, Morrison's second-in-command. "Resistance networks on 23 worlds are standing by for the signal." The plan was audacious beyond anything attempted in galactic history. While the main human fleet engaged the Carnith Third Fleet, resistance groups would launch coordinated uprisings across the Empire. The goal was to overwhelm Imperial response capabilities and demonstrate that the age of Carnith dominance was ending. Admiral Sectarn's Third Fleet waited in the Proxima Nebula, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. The Admiral had studied the previous battle reports and believed he understood human tactics well enough to counter them. "They rely on speed and surprise," he told his fleet commanders. "We will use our numbers to limit their maneuverability." Once they are trapped in a conventional formation battle, their advantages will be meaningless. What Admiral Sectarn failed to understand was that humans had never fought a conventional battle in their entire history. Every conflict in human experience had been won through adaptation, innovation, and the willingness to try tactics that seemed impossible. The first phase of Operation Starfall began when Captain Greg Nelson's squadron struck Imperial supply depots in the Vega system. The UN's Defiance and her escort ships moved through the depot complex like sharks through a school of fish, destroying supplies and communication equipment while avoiding the heavier Imperial warships. Simultaneously, Captain Helen Cruz led strike force against the Carnath communication relay at Wolf 359. The UN's Retribution and her squadron used hit-and-run tactics that left the Imperial forces confused and disorganized. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the Altarian slaves received Morrison's signal and began their uprising. Talvin led his people in a coordinated assault on the Imperial administrative complex. Using improvised weapons and tactics learned from human military transmissions, the uprising succeeded beyond all expectations. The Carnath garrison, consisting of troops who had never faced serious resistance, was overwhelmed by the determination of beings who had nothing left to lose. Similar scenes played out across Imperial territory. On Proxima Centauri, the Shenterum scientists seized control of the orbital research stations. In the Vega system, Caldari traders turned their merchant vessels into makeshift warships. The Carnath Empire, which had maintained control through fear and overwhelming force, suddenly found itself fighting 100 separate battles simultaneously. Their command structure, designed for conquest rather than defense, began to collapse under the strain. Overlord Veximer watched the reports flooding in from across his territory with growing panic. How is this possible? These uprisings are happening everywhere at once. His intelligence chief, Commander Yaktel, delivered the devastating news. The humans are coordinating the resistance movements. They're using the Valathi communication network to share intelligence and timing. Every uprising is precisely timed to maximize our response difficulties. Deploy the reserve fleets to suppress the uprisings, Veximer ordered. Sir, the reserve fleets are already engaged. We don't have enough ships to respond to everything simultaneously. For the first time in his reign, Veximer was experiencing what his victims had felt for centuries: helplessness in the face of overwhelming force. Decisive battle came when Admiral Waters' main fleet met Admiral Sectarn's third fleet in the Centauri system. The Carnath formation was massive and impressive. 300 ships arranged in the traditional Imperial battle formation that had conquered dozens of worlds. All ships execute Pattern Delta, Waters commanded. Show them what Deathworlders can do. The human fleet split into multiple groups, each moving in unpredictable patterns that made targeting impossible. Captain Morrison led one group in a direct assault on the Imperial flagship, while other squadrons attacked from the flanks. And Rear Admiral Sectarn watched his careful formation dissolve into chaos as the human ships moved with impossible coordination. How are they communicating so effectively? Their ships are scattered across light minutes of space. His communications officer provided the answer. Sir, they're using quantum entanglement communicators. The technology is far more advanced than anything in our databases. The battle raged for 6 hours, but the outcome was decided in the first 30 minutes. The human ships fought with a ferocity and creativity that the Carnath had never encountered. They used the system's asteroid field as cover, turned disabled ships into weapons, and coordinated attacks that seemed to anticipate Imperial responses. Marine General Paul Turner's ground forces played a crucial role when they boarded the Imperial flagship. His troops, including units commanded by Colonel Kate Morgan and Major Alex Rivera, moved through the enemy ship with devastating efficiency. the Karnath warriors found themselves facing humans in close combat for the first time. The experience was terrifying. These Deathworlders moved with deadly precision, showed no fear of injury, and fought with an intensity that seemed impossible. They're not just soldiers, one surviving Karnath warrior would later report. They're predators. They enjoy the fight. Admiral Sektarn was captured when human marines stormed his command bridge. The sight of the massive Imperial fleet commander surrendering to a handful of human soldiers was broadcast across the galaxy, and the psychological impact was immense. With their third fleet destroyed and uprisings raging across their territory, the Karnath Empire began to collapse. World after world declared independence as news of the human victory spread. Overlord Vexumer made one final attempt to maintain control by threatening to destroy entire planets rather than lose them. His message to the rebel worlds was simple: surrender now, or we will render your worlds uninhabitable. The response came from Morrison himself, broadcasting from the captured Imperial flagship. This is Commodore Morrison of the United Nations Space Command. Any Imperial ship that threatens civilian populations will be destroyed immediately. The age of Karnath terror is over. The final confrontation came at the Karnath homeworld itself. Vexumer had gathered the remnants of his fleet for a last desperate stand. The planet's orbital defenses were formidable, and the remaining Imperial forces were determined to fight to the death. But they were not facing the same humans who had stumbled into this conflict months earlier. The crews of the human fleet had learned to fight in the crucible of interstellar war, and they had been joined by liberated species from across the galaxy. Captain Morrison led the final assault, his ship now accompanied by vessels crewed by the Lathi, Eltarians, Juantarim, and dozens of other species. The sight of the multi-species fleet approaching the Imperial homeworld was a symbol of everything the Empire had tried to prevent. The battle for the Karnath homeworld lasted 2 days. When it ended, Overlord Vexumer was dead, and the last Imperial stronghold had fallen. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was finished. In the aftermath, representatives from hundreds of liberated worlds gathered on the former Imperial capital. The Galactic Liberation Council was formed, with Earth as its headquarters and humanity as its primary military force. Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, addressed the assembled representatives with words that would be remembered for generations. We did not come to this galaxy seeking conquest. We came seeking knowledge and friendship. What we found was a call for help, and we answered it. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, worked to establish peaceful relations between the liberated species. Her efforts led to the formation of the Galactic Alliance, a voluntary confederation dedicated to mutual defense and cooperation. The former Karnath worlds were not occupied or enslaved. Instead, they were offered membership in the Alliance on equal terms with everyone else. Many accepted, tired of centuries of militarism and conquest. The Velathi, whose distress call had started everything, became humanity's closest allies in the new galactic order. Elder Rindar often spoke of the day when desperate refugees had encountered the mythical Deathworlders and discovered that legends could become reality. You saved us, she told Morrison during the dedication ceremony for the new Alliance headquarters. But more than that, you saved the galaxy itself. Morrison looked out at the gathered representatives, beings from hundreds of worlds who had found freedom because one human captain had decided to answer a call for help. We just did what anyone should do. We helped those who needed it.